When my spouse's relatives labeled me a fortune hunter, I unveiled my hidden wealth, which surpassed their entire family's net worth combined. When I first encountered my wife, I was an ordinary man. No riches, no extravagant lifestyle, just a typical job. But everything shifted when we began our relationship. She hailed from a prosperous family, one with significant wealth. Her dad was a thriving entrepreneur, her mom descended from inherited affluence, and her siblings were already thriving in lucrative professions. They inhabited a realm I'd never experienced, a world of opulence, prestige, and exclusivity. Initially, I wasn't fazed by their wealth. I was smitten with her, and that was all that mattered. But things soon grew complicated. Her family started questioning my intentions. Why was I with her? Was I merely chasing her fortune? Each time we visited them, I felt like I was under a microscope, evaluated, and deemed unworthy. They branded me a gold digger, making me feel like an intruder in their circle. They were unaware of my own achievements, my own prosperity, and my independent life outside their domain. I didn't want to boast about it until I was left with no alternative. It wasn't until they began humiliating me in her presence that I realized I had to set them straight. I refused to let them keep treating me as inferior. They needed to see who they were truly dealing with. Over time, the weight of their assumptions began to wear me down. At first, I dismissed their remarks, subtle jabs that I could easily ignore. But the more I engaged with them, the more apparent it became that they viewed me through a distorted lens. They didn't know me. They were clueless about my past, my struggles, or the fact that I'd worked tirelessly for all I'd achieved. Instead, they focused on what I lacked, and that was enough to make me their scapegoat. I didn't flaunt wealth. I didn't drive a luxurious car or don designer clothes. I wasn't immersed in the lavish lifestyle they were accustomed to. The more time I spent with them, the more I felt like an outsider, constantly striving to belong in a world that wasn't mine. The breaking point came when their assumptions about me solidified. At every family gathering, I was the target of hushed remarks and sly looks. They never confronted me outright, but their disdain was unmistakable. They saw me as a gold digger, someone in the relationship solely for my wife's wealth. My self-reliance and accomplishments meant nothing to them. In their eyes, I was just a schemer. I felt the need to constantly prove myself. Every family event was a reminder of their judgment lingering in the air. They had no clue that I was financially stable, that I'd been building a company for years, making savvy investments and securing my future. But none of that registered with them. They saw me as the broke guy with no ambition. It stung, but I pushed it aside, hoping it would eventually fade. It didn't. As months passed, the divide between us widened. They'd boast about their extravagant trips, their financial ventures, the properties they acquired, always with an air of superiority. They were oblivious to the fact that I was quietly observing, noting how detached they were from reality. It became clear that if I didn't act, things would only worsen. I couldn't tolerate being seen as lesser than them. They didn't know who I was or what I was capable of. I began planning my next steps. I wasn't going to parade my wealth, but I knew I had to reveal it to shift their view of me. They needed to understand that I wasn't just a man leeching off my wife's success. I had my own victories, my own fortune, my own narrative. It wasn't about ego or showing off. It was about reclaiming my self-worth and earning the respect I deserved. What they didn't realize was that I'd been quietly constructing something far grander than they could comprehend. It was time to demonstrate that I didn't need their wealth, or anyone's, to forge my own destiny. The dynamics were about to shift. As time, I noticed a recurring theme with my wife's family. Every time we were together, there was a subtle undercurrent. It felt like they couldn't accept me for who I was, and each remark was crafted to remind me I wasn't good enough. I was already aware of their affluence and high standing, but initially I thought it was just their lifestyle. Soon, I realized it was more. An unspoken benchmark they held over me, one I could never meet in their eyes. They didn't just question my career or origins. They questioned my very existence. They viewed me as a parasite, someone there to mooch off their daughter's riches. I recall how they'd comment on my simple lifestyle, or how fortunate I was to be with her, as if I wasn't worthy of her on my own terms. I tried to shrug it off initially, but it began to gnaw at me. It wasn't just about money. It was about status. They believed I wasn't in their class. What hurt most was how my wife would laugh.